Yo, 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 what's up? So this is gonna be a little bit longer video. I want to talk a little bit about the end of the world. So there's so many people that I know I talk to online. We're called conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat people, we're called crazy, all of that stuff. I agree. The problem is, in today's society, it's so fast paced, it's so quick. Our brains, we watch so many shows, we watch so many movies. So many people don't put out a plan to think longer term or think positive long term. So many people see some of the negativity in the world and they just think, the world's coming to an end, the depopulation agenda. There's so much crap, right? My opinion, I'm a little bit less pessimistic. The world is not ending. It's not ending. I promise you, the world is not going to end. I truly was one of those people where I was pessimistic about the world, and then I took a deeper dive and took a step back and said, let's look at the reality of things. All right. So, why is not the world ending? Again, they have a lot of plans for the future. We are not in a world ending event. We are in a world transitioning event. We are in what is called digital transformation. The elites, the rulers, the people that run the world, all this crap, they have an agenda to change their power. Right? We are going from a world of where they control the masses through money printing to a world of they control the masses by owning everything. They technically own everything as it is. Again, people think they own a house, but if you didn't pay your property taxes, the government would come seize it. So you technically don't even own the house. You don't own the land that you're on. You have to pay taxes, right? Anyway, they already kind of own everything. And they tax you on everything, and then that's kind of how they own it, right? So that's basically the big issue with today is you could kind of avoid that. In the digital world, it's going to be impossible to avoid. All right, there's going to be means that it's automatically going to be kind of taken from you. Right, you won't even notice it, and that's kind of how they will stay in power. But let's move along. All right, the end of the world is not happening. We're going from a transition to the industrial revolution into the digital transformation into the digital revolution, and this is going to push humanity forward, and also it's going to create another 50, 100 year cycle of good progress to humans. It might look matrixy, dystopian for a lot of people that especially value the old traditional world, but that doesn't mean that it's total slavery in this society, especially for the next 100 years that we may live in. I see a lot of positivity. I see a lot of making our lives more convenient. It's gonna take also some adaptation, some, transition. Say, okay, it's gonna take acceptance. All right, it's gonna take acceptance. How many people accept the fact that we don't have privacy today? Your camera is watching you, your phone is listening to you 24 hours a day. Have a conversation about goldfish over and over, and eventually you'll get advertising about goldfish, even though you don't even own one, you've never bought anything, you never even walked into a pet store, but you're getting advertising now on it. That means that it's listening to you. The evidence is there that we are in a society that we have almost no privacy, and yet people don't accept it. And when you talk about, okay, we don't have privacy, so let's start using that to our will and start getting rid of some of the bad actors that should not be in our society. And then it goes too far. Then it's like, oh no, you're gonna kind of completely control my life. I don't want to be a slave. But they don't technically think that they're not a slave already for whatever reason. We are slaves today. We're slaves to the money. We're slaves to the system. You can easily get out of that by being smart, by investing good, by working hard and taking time off, or whatever it may be. You can absolutely opt out of the system, which in a total digital world, people think that they don't have that option out, but you absolutely do. And not setting yourself up for success and having everybody else be the slaves to that system. That system might not be welcome in your mind if you were a slave, but you might be welcoming if you're necessarily like not quite be a servant in that system. We already have billions of people that live in such poverty today, that live in such harsh conditions, that would absolutely be welcome to a system that has zero privacy, as long as we can make their lives better. So that's the transition we're going to see. We're going to see a power from the West transition to the East, because the East has all of those people that will welcome such system. And what countries am I talking about? I'm talking Africa, India, the Middle East, Asia. They will absolutely all welcome a system of what we might feel is slavery and dystopian nightmare, but they'll welcome that because they're going to start to see their lives, their kids' lives get better and better and better. At the same time, when the power transitions, we are in the West is absolutely greedy, absolutely won't play a part of this system, and will start to fall farther and farther and farther behind. Now, let's explain. In this process, we are going to see things being taken kind of away from the entitled, from our way of life. For example, we're going to start to see maybe higher prices or less of it, or we're going to have to start limiting back. We're not going to start to consume as much. That's because it's going to start to transition into the different parts of the world that will accept it, that will accept a total digital dystopian nightmare that we might think. And we won't welcome it here. We're going to continue to fight it. All right. Also, we don't deserve it. In all reality, we've lived through the greatest times in the Industrial Revolution. We've reaped the most benefits of it. We got to the point now where we are basically stealing and taking resources and just getting everything we can that we made from that Industrial Revolution. It came to a peak a while ago. Now we're kind of in a transition period where they're setting up the tools necessary, just like they set up the tools necessary in the teens, 20s, 30s in America to reap the rewards of this Industrial Revolution. Now they're setting up the infrastructure necessary to set up the total digital revolution in other parts of the world. What does this mean? Again, I'm an American, all right? I'm sure most of you watching this might live in America, or you might live in a Western society. How does this transition take place? Normally, in terms of history, a massive transition is going to be more so of a battle. It starts with a three-letter word, starts with a W and ends in R. I'm going to let your mind, think of the word, all right? That's normally how it's going to go. What the agenda might be, it's probably going to be climate change, all right? They've been pushing this climate change agenda for so freaking long that we have an end goal, which at the end of this, when everything is more efficient because of this digital transformation, we can now say, hey, we came out on top. But the problem is all the losers are going to lose, right? It's also going to force people to move around and transition their lives into a different type of system, right? That's kind of how things are going to work over the next maybe 10 years or so when this kind of happens and goes through. So that is kind of the digital transformation. What does this mean for you that might live in the West, that may live in total consumerism mindset market, well, you have to start preparing to start not being able to consume as much. Your money might not be worth anything now. And we just had the Fed president talk about the dollar is being questioned on the world status. Well, what happens if and when the dollar loses the world reserve currency status? That means that other governments around the world, other corporations, banks, whatever, no longer need to be buying our debt. If we have nobody buying our debt and we keep printing our debt, it makes our money absolutely worth less and less and less. Not worth less completely, but it might get there if we keep printing and not being able to produce anything to back that up. Now question yourself. Now we no longer have the world reserve currency. Now they no longer need to be buying our debt. What does that mean for the debt that we already have? People are going to want to get paid back for it from that, right? They're already wanting to get paid back from that. How are we going to pay them back? If you do live in America, ask yourself, start asking everybody around you what they do for a living and think about it. Did anything that those people around you benefit other countries? All right? I have quite a big influence of people around me. I have a lot of friends. I've had a lot of people come into my life. I seriously don't know any single person that has a job that directly benefits other businesses. All right? We live in a massive service industry where we're servicing each other. We're servicing the money that's already circulating. Well, if that money becomes worthless, what is circulating? A bunch of dog shit. What are we sending to other countries? All right? We do have a massive amount of farmland and all that, but the manufacturing, but that's slowly, over the past 30 years, I'm going to say 30 years for a good reason, 31 years for a really good reason. Ever since then, our manufacturing has been slowly outsourced to other countries. Our farmland has gotten poisoned to death through GMOs and all that other artificial crap that nobody even really wants to eat. And then, not only that, our farmland being bought up by the bulk by a few billionaires, by a few short hands. So it's not the people that have control over the resources that we ship out that can switch on a dime. They can kill that whenever they want. And the manufacturing has already gone out. What do we produce to sell to another country to back our currency by value? It's coming to that time now where we have to do that. What assets do we have? Most of our GDP, we're the world's biggest economy. We have the biggest GDP. What is our GDP? Most of our GDP is kind of military. How much do we spend on military? I mean, it's absolutely incredible. But what is the military if we don't have war? So maybe we do need war to pay back our debts, right? So we might be seeing war in the near future, just so we can try to pay back our debt, to give our currency some value so we can pay back our debt to something else. But what else is our GDP? Is also a massive amount is our financial system. Why is our financial system such a big part of our GDP? Is because the dollar reserve currency, we force everybody to kind of play on this market where that creates liquidity where we pull fees from. Well, if they're replacing the world reserve currency and they're no longer going to be playing in our markets, that must mean that liquidity is going to go to other places, which means that's going to pull volume and fees out of our pockets. So that's going to lower our GDP, right? So, again, does that have a direct benefit to other countries when other countries have another means to transact and trade value without using our markets? No, right? So what value do we bring to the rest of the world? We do produce a lot of good technology. We do produce a lot of big inventions and all that we pay for. But over the past decade, probably recently, we're starting to see a big shift. Not only a big shift in remote work, which remote work does is say, hey, I no longer need to live in the United States. I went there from school. I learned all this. I could go back home, or let's just say America starts going in decline and crime starts skyrocketing. Now all of our talent can say, hey, I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna go live in Hong Kong. I'm gonna go live in India, whatever it may be, wherever they came from. And I can work online now and bring my income to my local community, and I no longer have to provide benefits for the US. That may be happening. We might see a big shift in that over time. We've also, what I was just about to say, over the past decade, we've been seeing a lot of companies move out of the United States because there's too much red tape, there's too much taxes. So I'm gonna go to a tax haven thing and I can run a company remotely and avoid all this red tape and all this taxes. That way I can innovate. That way I can be close to all the manufacturing because the manufacturing's all over here. And I want to be more hands-on. We're already seeing all of this stuff going down. What does this mean for an average person in America, like myself? Again, it's times of uncertainty. I cannot tell you exactly what might happen. I'm gonna tell you a big conspiracy is that there's going to be a cyber attack. A cyber attack does make sense. A cyber attack that targets our financial system, that gives us a reason why our financial system's crap. That way, every other player has an excuse to use whatever they're building today to get it out of our financial system. All right? That is a conspiracy. Not quite a conspiracy. It's not coming out of my head. That's what they're putting out there. The World Economic Forum is saying that they're going to have a cyber attack that takes out our financial system, and it's coming soon. So where we might see that, we might absolutely see that. What would the impact of that be? Well, it's pretty simple. You're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to try to swipe your card. You're going to go to the gas pump. You're going to try to swipe your card, and it's not going to work. All right. What does also this mean? That when the dollar reserve does get replaced and we become on an equal playing field and nobody needs to buy our debts back, everything around us gets expensive. Everything coming into the country today might not want to be coming into the country today because they no longer need to service their debts. They no longer need to be buying our debts. So now they're going to ship their products to other areas of the world because they might want that currency, or they might want those goods and services for themselves. That's the big one. Remember, right now, today, they're gonna sell all of their resources for the dollar and then take the dollar and buy whatever they want. But now they don't have that middleman. Now they might want to take their goods and services and buy directly more goods and services for themselves. Again, they're not going to the dollar anymore because, again, they're not getting anything from the dollar anymore. It's just a worthless piece of paper that we're not providing the value back behind it. We're not giving gold. We're not. Again, our trade deficits are absolutely incredible. So, again, for the average person in America, start to see higher inflation of pricing goods and services because there's going to be less of them, there's going to be less coming in the country, or they're going to start requiring more dollars or maybe a different currency. Maybe. I mean, that would just absolutely be devastating. Also, all the red tape in America, we're not drilling anymore, we're not doing explorations of different reserves, all of this stuff. Refineries are catching on fire, our farmlands are catching on fire, the farmlands going bankrupt, they're slaughtering all these animals. Now you may go to the grocery store and there may not be very many options there, or you might have to spend $20 for a pound of beef instead of $5. Or maybe you have to spend $200 for a pound of beef instead of $5. That time may come over time, but the impact of all of this happening is, again, your assets could also be going down at the same time your cost of living can be going up, because the cost of living is everything that we're kind of importing. Again, your farmland, to get that meat into the grocery store, you need fuel. I mean, you need a lot of different things. So the cost of living can absolutely be going up, while all the asset prices become worth less and worth less and worth less, because again, what are the assets? What value is a home to other, again, these houses were great value to outside investors because, one, they can keep capital in America. They can also start getting more dollars that they need for for the means, for the reserve currencies and all that. Do I see the reserve currency losing its status next month? Probably not. Maybe in a few years at the minimum. Most people say it's never going to happen in our lifetime. But we're seeing the Fed president, the Federal Reserve president, talk about the fact that it's under the other countries are already utilizing a 24-hour payment network. And they might have to revert to a stable coin or a cryptocurrency just to withhold the unit of the dollar as the reserve currency, which is absolutely incredible just to hear that out of their mouth. Again, the implications of this is devastating to the average American that produces no benefit to a different currency to withhold their value. Absolutely devastating. So that's why I said in one of my last videos, your goal right now as an American should not be trying to better your life. Your goal for the next few years is to maintain your life. You still got food in the supermarket? That may not be around next year. So you might need to have some food on the shelf. That faucet dripping nice clean water might not be the case when your government's broke and doesn't have the chemical that isn't servicing the water. Look at Detroit, how they've had nasty ass water for so long. Why? Why haven't they fixed it? The cost's too high, they can't afford to fix it. So that might happen to you, wherever you might be at. It might get too expensive for the government to service your water, and now you're having shit brown water filled with fluoride and all that other garbage coming out of your faucets. You got a filter? Again, you can prepare yourself however you may want. Again, we have some basics in our society: food, water, energy, shelter, security, all of that good stuff. Do I see all of this happening overnight? Absolutely not. Do I see the world coming to an end or a Mad Max scenario? Maybe in certain parts of the world, but no, because majority of the world is gonna start to see their lives better. You think that they're gonna go crazy and start killing each other? We're pretty much at a time where either a civil war comes to America or a world war comes to America, because this is the land that is forced to change. This is the land that took too much out of the cookie jar and now has to suffer the consequences. The chicken, the hen, coming home to roost. It's time to pay back our debts, because nobody's no longer gonna continue to buy our debts. So now we have to service our debts, now we have to pay for our debts, now we need to make that transition to do so. That only really technically means we are a machine of war, so we may be headed to war, we may be headed to war here. Again, is the world coming to an end? Absolutely not. Is there room for opportunities? There is absolutely tons of opportunities. You gotta invest in that new way, that digital transformation. Research it. Go online and go, what is digital transformation? And you'll start to see kind of what they're building, how to make things more efficient, all of this stuff, who's gonna benefit. And if you can position yourself correctly, you may be one of those people that might have to work 10, 12, 20 hours a week, and your investments in your job and your smarts might pay for a great life in that system. Or you may leave yourself with nothing, and you might have to become a slave to that system because you're stuck here in America, and now we have to provide value for a currency. You might find yourself in the middle of the desert digging holes in a fucking gold mine because we need gold to pay our debts, whatever it may be. Or you might be on the front lines fighting a war. Don't know. If you position yourself correctly, you could be anywhere in the world, technically. You could be in the good parts of the world that might not be on fire, might not be fighting, might be all that. The world is not coming to an end. The depopulation agenda, again, go back and look at how many people died in the wars. Absolutely millions, absolutely devastating. but we have 7.8 billion people on this planet. Will a billion people die in this transition period from the digital transformation, from the shift from east to west to digital revolution? A billion people absolutely might die. Don't be one of them. Get rid of your closed thinking mind. Start thinking outside the box. Start thinking open-minded and say, hey, maybe if I just prepare myself just a little bit, I won't be one of those people out on the streets begging for food. I won't be one of those people on the streets begging for water. I won't be one of those people on the streets having to give up my kid or anything. At the time we are in now, the facts that they're talking about a dollar losing global reserve status opens that question where you need to have this conversation with yourself. Come up with your own opinion. Come up with your own research. Start researching it and come up and say, hey, how can this play out? This is the end goal. How can this play out? And what are the side effects? What are the consequences that are going to happen to this goal playing out? Because that's where the money's going. That's where the power is going. That's the direction that we're headed. You can see that. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to explain what the consequences of those actions are. That's for us to try to figure out. They don't even know that themselves. They're just going to continue to push on and push on and push on. And until they eventually win, it's not even a win or lose battle. We can't fight what they're doing. We can't. They have the influence. They have everything. You can't fight it. You have to join them and see the consequences that are coming. Anyway, this was a very long video. If you have any questions, please hit me up. I love to talk about this stuff. Anyway, peace.